So I guess, we've talked a bit about the performance. Perhaps we should share some of the early data that's been collected. So Joe in the isovalent team has been doing some really great work to create some reproducible tests, because we don't want to just tell you that, well, their performance is really great. We want you to be able to go and recreate those results for yourself and verify and validate that they are, that they are correct. So I think I have a copy of those results here. There's the testing profile that we've been using, that Joe's been using, is using Nighthawk, which I think it's from the Service Mesh Performance group, or perhaps from the Meshery group. But it's a kind of standard application, if you like, for testing service mesh throughput and latency. So as I bring up these performance slides, Thomas, do you want to sort of speak to some of these results as we bring them up?
Absolutely. So yeah, so we have compared essentially Cilium as a service mesh with Envoy as the integrated proxy, and then compared that against Istio. And I think we've also run numbers of Linkerd, but they're not quite complete yet. So today we're sharing comparison numbers against Istio. What we're measuring here is essentially on GK with reproducible scripts, so you can run them yourself as well, and then measure request rate, like requests per second, the CPU consumption while doing so. So requests per second, more is strictly better. You want more requests per second at the lowest possible CPU consumption. And then we also measure latency, mean latency, P95, P99 latency as well. With latency, lower is better. You want the lowest number of latency possible. The higher the latency, the longer, for example, your clients, your users have to wait for the website to load or for your service to respond. This can in particular be impactful for microservices architecture, because in essentially maybe to serve one client request, it will have to contact multiple services in a chain. So every time you're adding latency in that chain, it essentially you pay that cost multiple times. What we're seeing across the board is that Cilium provides or performs significantly better. Like here we're looking at requests per second and the latency thereof. Requests per second, you can see that trying to figure out, I think the axis is titled incorrectly, or is this the latency slide?
This is the latency.
This is yeah, I think it's the title. At different requests per second. Okay, so this is the latency. Yeah. So we can see that Cilium is essentially performing better, almost half the latency that compared to a sidecar model. You can see that it's vaguely the same. So the difference is there's slight difference depending on the different rates of requests per second that we're running, but there is vaguely the same time of difference. If we go to the next slide, we can see the throughput itself. So this would be if you, for example, if you are streaming. So for example, if you are video streaming, there is less difference here. Like if we look at max throughput, there is less difference here. But again, the latency is where the difference comes in. So this means that to achieve the same throughput, Cilium was using a bit less CPU and thus could provide better latency, could respond quicker. The last slide here is even more interesting. This is the time we've measured to bring up a pod. And this is where there's actually a significant difference in the two models. If we have a sidecar model and we require a sidecar, a proxy for every pod, we have to inject that pod or that sidecar into the pod. And the pod cannot really start until that sidecar is ready and available. Whereas if we don't have a sidecar and we're running a proxy outside, that is not required. And that really shows in the time it takes for a pod to become ready. So in this scenario, we have essentially scheduled 200 pods, and then we're measuring how long does it take for the pods to become available. So this would be the scenario you're scaling up, you're scaling out because you have more customer requests or more client requests coming in, and you want more service backends. And the difference here is 3x or more than 3x in particular for jobs and deployments. This simply shows that the cost of sidecar injection, this is not even the data path impact, this is just the cost of actually injecting the sidecar and starting it up. It's very, very significant, and you will have to wait quite a while for your pods to become ready.